clown virgins, clown virgins. We're getting together to make the world better. Clown virgins, clown virgins. We'll make you laugh and play, we'll take your blues away.
I'm excited to be here among so many amazing clowns. I am in India right now, in the north of India. Um, yeah, so I have been doing theater. I grew up with theater. I grew up with my family. I come from a family of theater activists. So I've seen activism and theater together ever since I knew could make sense of it. I've been clowning, really kind of going deeper into clowning since about 15 years. I was first introduced to clowning by a Portuguese clown and a friend, Anna. And then I kind of kept exploring and self-teaching myself. And the more I shared it with others, the more I learned about it. So one of my pet clown problems, how clowns have problems. So one of my pet clown problem that I keep trying to engage with and play with um, is engaging with serious adults. The kinds who think there's plays all fluff and no stuff. Um, and, to kind of create spaces where they can find delight in the ridiculous and they can recover from their seriousness syndrome. I love working with children, but adults is something that keeps putting me back. I finished a clown workshop yesterday with some lovely young women in the Himalayas, and it was, as always, in some ways, I, like all clowns do, failed. But I also, of course, learned a lot and came out with a lot of laughter and joy. So I want to talk about this problem of seriousness that I've been kind of getting into for a few years now. Um, I've been exploring life's complex and serious, I say in quote, serious themes like um, identity and sexuality, gender, and mental wellness, even grief, through the powerful wisdom of clowning. Um, and I've been doing a lot of workshops and working with a lot of people, and also shows that interact with audiences, with various kinds of audiences. Um, and India has a lot of diversity and variety of people to work with. So there's a lot to play with here. So there are some things that I have found as I've explored these things. The first is that something that I really believe in is that play is not just something that we do. It's an attitude. Um, it's it's the ability to jump into something head first and take risks, not think about what the outcome is going to be. So when we're in play, that's what really we are kind of buying into. And of course, being present. If you're not present when in the games that you're playing, um, then you're not really playing. So for me, it's not just an act, but really a kind of a way of being. And clowns are the embodiment of play. Um, um, and clowning and play build resilience. I really kind of found that the more we play, the more resilient we are in times like these, in the world that's happening. And they allow, and clowning allows me to stay in that vulnerability to kind of, because what play and clowning does is it bypasses intellectual resistance. Um, the mind stops me from taking risks because it has fears and all these experiences that it's seen and logic and excuses that hold me back. And clowning allows me to engage with something like grief in an embodied way, instead of from the head. And so because of that, the more I play, it's like a muscle. uh, it doesn't kind of happen overnight. Resilience is not built, but it's about getting into that practice of play and building that muscle, and as we keep doing that in communities. So I do a lot of also workshops that are not just clown performance based, but I use a lot of clowning to work with different communities and groups of people, especially activists, and use play in that to build that muscle of resilience, because especially people working in change really need that. And also, historically, clowns have stretched the fabric of human tolerance. Like, uh, in India, the tradition of clowning is age old. It's very old. There's in Hindi, the word in Sanskrit, the word for the clown is vidhushak, and they're always there, in all kinds of storytelling forms, traditional folk, thousands of years old forms. There's always a vidhushak who would come and question the king, like clowns have historically done. So they've always stretched the fabric of tolerance. They've always stood up and created that resilience in human cultures. And we're kind of going away as a culture. I feel like sometimes we're going away from that, and so the resilience is lesser and the tolerance is lesser, and we get into trouble more. The third thing that I found is that humor doesn't diminish sorrow. I've noticed that a lot of times humor and sorrow in Indian culture, at least, it's not. It's like, are you diminishing what I'm feeling? But I think it doesn't. Are you demeaning what I'm feeling? But I think it's not. I think what humor does is expands the capacity, our capacity to hold sorrow, like resilience. It allows me to lean into sorrow, or not just sorrow, but things that don't feel, that feel icky, and to see possibilities in that. And laughter is empowering, and it disengages our arms, the resistance. And when that is disengaged, then I'm able to learn and grow more. And so hold and expand more and hold my sorrow and hold things that don't feel good. Um, the fourth thing that I found is that play builds bridges. Um, I'm deeply inspired by the Sufis and Sufi poetry, and I feel like um, in India, I've seen some men especially snicker at me saying that Sufis were clowns, but I think they were. I think that what Sufis spoke about is what clowns are all about. They're about building bridges and being present and loving unconditionally. And um, I've explored Bulle Shah, Baba Bulle Shah. He was a Punjabi Sufi poet, and his poetry with clowning and the story of love through Romeo and Juliet, and it really kind of resonated with a lot of people culturally as well, because it's about building bridges, it's about dissolving separation. And that's what the Sufis talked about, that I am not separate from you, even though you're thousands of miles away from me right now. But when we play, even if it's through the screen on Zoom, we kind of come on a common ground, we come together. Um, and also, I think a lot of times I realize when I'm in play and I'm in humor, that all the things that I think that separate me from you are just plain silly, So it's just recognizing the silly in things, I think, is a very um, important thing to have. Um, so yeah, and the last thing that it's not the last thing, but whatever I could think of for today, the I think, and it's related to some of my present explorations, is because um I am going through a period of grief myself personally. I mean, I lost my father 4 years ago, and I noticed that in the following few months I had the opportunity to play even though it was online, with a lot of friends. And that, I think, saved my life through that period of grief. And I'm still in it somehow, but I'm also interested, and I've been exploring a lot about grief in play, and what was it that really helped me. And I think that, at least in my culture, I've seen that the expression of grief or even anger, is very sanitized. There's a certain way that you do things. And what that does is it takes away the depth of that experience that one can have through grief. That sanitization takes us away. It leaves us with a superfluous connection with our emotions, with our body, with the world around us, with people around us. It's the depth, I think, of really being alive is taken away, which experiences and expressions of grief and things that we're told not to feel bring in. And what clowning does is, I think it forces a communal reckoning. It can be a ritual that kind of reminds us of the delicious, ridiculous vulnerability that is to be alive. That being alive brings that vulnerability, and to really kind of honor that and be in that and stay in that. Um, and 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 I think that just playing with it and seeing the possibilities that come up, and just being in my body than in my head. And as clowning is such an embodied practice. Um, and laughter is you when you're really laughing, you're laughing with your whole body, and uh, not just from outside but inside. I can sometimes feel my organs laughing as well. And it's and when done together as a community, and when there's a show and an audience laughs with you, it's a communal reckoning of being alive, and the depth that can bring, and and acknowledging the grief and the sadness and the sorrow and the anger and the celebration and the joys, and the beauties as well. Rumi, there's a famous quote from Rumi that says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Um, and I think that's so true. And I think clowns just, make the light a little ticklish. That's all. And, it just kind of brings in the silly as well. Um, yeah. I think um, that's all I wanted to say today. I also do this so I do workshops, and I also practice something called interplay, which is, I think, a very clown practice. Interplay is a global art of movement and playfulness, and silence, and uh, you know the balance between the mind, body, and spirit. And I use a lot of interplay also in my work. Some of the recent explorations in performance that I've been doing, I recently created co-created, devised a show with some fellow clowns about, this culture of exclusive, like everything, this is premium, this is exclusive, and the exclusivity that comes with it. And in India, especially, there's like many levels of exclusions that happen. There's caste and class and language and region, and so we kind of played with that and what that feels like as clowns. And I'm also exploring a show on grief, um, and how, yeah, that is something that I'm still kind of, um, I think it's still in a heart level than an embodied level, but it'll come. Uh, yeah, thank you so much. I think.
There ain't no place I'd rather be. You're lighter than the sun and the stars to me. Everybody's family at the Clown Virgin.